Happy Monday, dear friends who don't like their job. Happy Monday to you. Good morning and welcome to my desk. I'm back with another what am I doing with my life? Where am I going next? And how do I figure it out? In my last video, I talked about the job that I first had right out of college when I moved to New York and worked in an investment bank. And now I'm just going to skip ahead 15 years. And has it been 15 years? God, I hope not. And talk about my current job. I work as an internal consultant at a manufacturing company. What does that mean? I'm going to try to explain a little bit without boring you. In order to do so, I'm going to introduce my predecessor, Frederick Winslow Taylor. Who is Freddie T? Great question. Freddie T was supposedly the first scientific management consultant during the Industrial Revolution. He took engineering principles and applied them to manufacturing. It was this idea called Taylorism, taken from his last name, Taylor. He developed methods of improving industrial efficiency that he would apply to workers to make their output more efficient. To give you a sense of what he did, there's an interesting quote in this book called Team of Teams. It is your quintessential business book, Ode to Capitalism. You don't need to read it if that's not your thing, but I read it for work because it's my job. Anywho, okay, so back to Taylor. His genius lay in the regularity of his procedures, blah, blah, blah. Through a series of experiments, Taylor had determined the optimum temperature at which to cut steel chips, the optimal distance between the machinist and his tools, the optimal way for water to cool the lathe, and the optimal speed for internal conveyor belts. When it all came together, there was not a second of lost time, not an ounce of misplaced material, not a moment of unproductive human effort. Now, my hope for you, if you have a soul, is that you hear that and it registers a mixture of ew and awe, which some would say is the definition of the sublime. I wouldn't exactly call this sublime, but yeah, there's a little bit of awe and there's a little bit of disgust in there. And I think that that's probably the correct reaction. And I kind of want to walk you through the toxic growth mindset that I think started with our boy Taylor while acknowledging the usefulness of what he's done. Okay, so there are concepts in manufacturing called OEE and TEEP that I'm going to run through really quickly. He didn't invent those concepts. They were invented after him, but they were like in his spirit because his spirit really embodies gnarly levels of efficiency. So OEE stands for overall equipment effectiveness. It is a value that is determined by multiplying availability by performance by quality. I'm going to show you a little chart. But availability, actual runtime of a machine versus the scheduled runtime of a machine. The time you actually ran divided by the total time you planned to run the machine. So you have a sense of what the ideal amount of product is that you're going to make in the scheduled time that you've allotted. But in reality, you will have made a different amount. So the actual amount that you made over the amount that you wanted to have made in that amount of time, that is your performance. And then the last value is quality. And this is a measure of good units over all units produced. So good units means it was not scrapped. It was not thrown in the bin because it was under spec or not good enough or whatever. So quality is a measure of your scrap. When you multiply all these together, the availability of the machines, the performance of the machines, and the quality of the product, you get your overall equipment effectiveness number. That is a way of interpreting how efficient your operations are. Then there's another formula for something called TEEP, which is total effective equipment performance. Total effective equipment performance is supposed to reveal to you your hidden capacity. Ooh, your hidden capacity is determined based on taking that OEE number and multiplying it by utilization. And utilization is your scheduled runtime over all time. So like 24/7, 365. Imagine that you could have the machines running 24/7, 365, whatever your scheduled time over total available time times OEE equals. The reason I'm explaining all this is there's a lot of people at my company who get really excited by these numbers. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's actually really adorable. Like, if you're going to go to work and you're going to make something that matters to you and it matters to your customers, there's nothing wrong with having an efficient outlook towards it. I even think that I'm good at my job because I am naturally inclined to notice inefficiencies and try to improve. But I think that this attitude has seeped into our souls, at least in America. We're using terms like increase output or discover your hidden capacity or optimize your reach in contexts that apply to things like art or creativity or just literally anything else. If you apply this toxic growth mindset that really implies to industrialization, it implies to markets, if you apply that to your soul, you're kind of bullying yourself. And for the longest time, I didn't really know that I was doing that. And I think a lot of people don't know they're doing that. The diary of the CEO guy who said that his week was derailed because he had some wine. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry at that comment because I think so many people look up to him to have that level of optimization and productivity govern your entire life, including your free time and your socialization. Like, how sad is that? Reminds me of the parable of the fisherman. It goes something like there's a fisherman in Mexico who fishes just enough during the day to feed his family and spend time with his kids and lay around in the sun and have a good life. And some sort of capitalist comes into town, meets this fisherman, and says, have you thought about increasing your output? Have you thought about investing in fleets in order to acquire more fish and then make more money and grow and scale so that you can make a lot of money and then retire? And the fisherman said, well, what would I be doing this for? And the man said, oh, to make a lot of money and then retire. Okay, what am I going to do when I make a lot of money and retire? The capitalist says, oh, well, you can hang out with your children and you can sit by the beach and you can live a good life. Okay, well, that's already what he was doing. Making no sense. So I probably butchered that parable, but it's something like that. And yet, I can really sympathize with allowing this productivity mindset to bleed into all areas of your life, even knowing the parable of the fisherman. Because when you live in an environment where everyone is measuring efficiency like some sort of moral value, you fear that not applying those same metrics to your life will leave you behind. So you won't get to be the fisherman who fishes just enough and then hangs out with his family. You won't even get enough fish. And then not only are you not going to be able to hang out with your family, but you're going to be starving because you've been left behind by the economy that has decided that instead of your normal output of 3 fish making you a living, you now need to fish 9 fish, or you're not making a living, and therefore he's already behind and he can't make enough money to support his family, and all hell breaks loose. That is a genuine fear of mine, and I'm sure of everyone else's. So you don't want to disqualify yourself from these kinds of evaluations, this sort of measure of productivity, and yet applying it to areas where it doesn't suit is actively and paradoxically counterproductive. To make my point, let me pivot for a second. There are almost as many types of jobs out there as there are people. There are so many different things that you could do, and thank goodness for that, because my dream job is not going to be someone else's dream job. And I'm grateful that there are other people out there whose dream it is to become a doctor or a chef, because then I get to experience those people without myself having to put in the work of becoming a chef or a doctor. That there's that reality. Then there's this other reality that there are people for whom their job does not need to form the basis of their identity. I feel like it's the first question they ask you in America. It's like, hey, what's your name and what do you do for a living? It is the defining characteristic of your personhood. That doesn't need to be the case. It's like the fisherman. That dude probably, maybe his first means of defining himself is fisherman, but I sincerely doubt it. It seems like from the nature of the story, the most important things to him in life are the living, and the fishing is just what allows him to do the living. I think that there's a lot to be admired in a person who can compartmentalize their job as just a job and not invest their entire identity in it. But one of the things I had to admit to myself on this journey of like, what am I doing and what do I want to do, is I actually do think, not just because society mandates it, but because there's something inside of me that mandates that my job is a reflection of my personhood. When I did all of the evaluations in the Becoming You book by Susie Welch, I talked about in my first video, I realized that authenticity is one of the most important values that I have. Brief aside on values, I think the word values is kind of thrown around willy nilly without much meaning. I think most good people have all values. They see the value of kindness and humility and generosity and authenticity. Everyone can see the value of it. What makes you special and what makes your values is the way that you prioritize those things, because values are often inherently contradictory. Loyalty versus honesty is a good one. Um, or or generosity versus discipline. You can't be a full 100% generous while you're being a full 100% disciplined. And I do think both those things are values. So when I'm thinking about values, I think it's important to just understand that I'm referencing in any given moment the prioritization of certain values over others. Where was I going with this? Oh, so I think for me, I tend to really consistently value authenticity above other values. It's just a feature of my personality. And so because of that, I put my identity in almost everything I do, my job included. As much as I kind of wish that I could be free of this sense that my job is my identity, I kind of think I'm saddled with it for at least a little bit longer because my authenticity is itching for it. I feel like despite my best efforts, I've actually never had a job where I felt authentically myself, and I would really like to try having one. So that's part of what this video series is about, is like, how do I find a job that feels authentic to me and my skills and my interests. One of the things I absolutely adore doing is writing. In the very beginning of this journey of self-discovery professionally, I thought, oh, well, you clearly just want to be a writer. You've been writing in diaries and writing on Substack and just writing and writing for your whole life. That's what you want to be. And when I decided that I wanted to be a writer for money, I couldn't write a single word. I'm not exaggerating. I grew such a block in my head about needing to create work for this type of work for money that I couldn't write anything. I had no ideas. My editor mind was so overactive that I was basically pressing the delete button before I had finished typing a single word. It was miserable. I was miserable. Writing for me was a way of processing life as it was happening, and clouding that experience with this obligation to produce for money ruined the experience. And it wasn't until I let go of the idea of writing for money that I could write again. And now I am actively writing, but I have no obligation to write for money. And it's kind of a similar thing with cooking. I really, really, really like to cook, but I like to cook because there is nothing productive about it. I have in my freezer at all times an emergency pizza. I don't like to cook with recipes. I like to experiment as I go and taste things as I go. And inevitably, although hopefully not that often, it comes out horribly. And my husband knows that whenever that happens, it's okay because we have our emergency pizza. There are certain areas of your life that you might discover through trial and error or just know instinctively should not be applied to the domain of capitalism. It should not be applied to the logic of productivity because it's too sacred. Yeah, there's something toxic for you in that, but for other people it won't be the case. So what I'm left with then is I want my job to be an authentic reflection of who I am, what I'm interested and what I want to pursue. But it can't be so close to who I am and what I want that it's reaching into my soul as closely as writing does. So is there an in between? And that is the sweet spot for me. What is an area of your life that you find interesting, but you also wouldn't mind applying the principles of productivity to it? Where can you aspire to make money without feeling like it's bullying or disturbing the nugget of goodness in there? I think for me, I have some ideas of kinds of work that might fit in that in between. And that's what I'm going to spend the next couple of weeks exploring. And for now, I'm not bringing them up because I'm embarrassed. I'm still embarrassed. I'm still like a little bit shy about admitting to myself, let alone to the internet, what those things might be. So I'm going to let them simmer for a little bit longer and then see where I get. I think the last thing that I want to share on this front is all of this stuff happens in its own time. I feel like as a society, we have this religious reverence for efficiency and productivity. Those are the features of capitalism. How can you maximize profits? We admire Forbes 30s under 30 under 30s. We want to be the youngest ever, insert, accolade in the blank, but it shouldn't be measured on speed, and frankly it can't be. Everything that I have done to date kind of in retrospect kind of feels inevitable. I'm going at the speed that I'm going. My career is unfolding the way that it's unfolding. I can apply measures of operational efficiency to my manufacturing job, but I can't apply it to the timeline of my life. I am not a machine. I can't evaluate actual runtime over optimal runtime or actual output over 24/7, 365 days a year. You can't do that to yourself. You can't do that to your soul. It is bullying. And the universe doesn't care. The universe really doesn't care about your timelines. And there's something freeing about that. There's something maddening about it, sure, but life is not as much in our control as we'd like to think that it is. And accepting that, in my experience, paradoxically makes the process actually run maybe more efficiently. Your career is going to take weird turns. If anyone's watching these still, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what's working in your career and what's not. Next week, I'm going to spend a lot of time trying to explore the sweet spot. And then I'm hopefully going to finish reading The Drunken Silenus. I've been loving this book. I mentioned it in my vlog last week, but it's really weird. This author is allowing the octopus of his mind just reach his tentacles out and touch whatever he wants. To him, I think it feels tangential. To the reader, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. Like sometimes it just feels completely random, and I'm loving the bravery that he is demonstrating by allowing his mind to just go wherever. Yeah, I'm really enjoying his bravery and also the humor and the strangeness of this. So I'm wondering by the end of it where my mind will go as it's joining him in his weird journey. Thanks for watching.